Great. So hello, everyone. It's so exciting to see so many people here from faculty, students, even alums. It's great to see Alex and Katie. We missed you all this year. This year. So it's just really exciting to have so many people here today. Welcome, everyone, to the reveal of this year's Colton Review, Meredith's annual Literature and Art Journal, as the announcement of this year's Art and Literature Prize winners. We are so glad to have all of you here today to join with us in celebration of all the artists, writers, and editors who have contributed to the Colton Review, Volume 17. If you would like to have a copy of this year's publication, you can find them in different areas around Joyner, Johnson Hall, and Gaddy Hemrick Art Center. Since we know that not everyone can make it to campus, especially this year, we are excited to announce that for the first time, we have made the publication available online. To access it, all you have to do is visit our website, coltonreview.com. I'm pretty sure that's all it is. Yes, Olivia just put it in the chat. So without further ado, my co-editor Olivia Slack and I will begin by reading a letter written from our team of editors. We opened this year's letter from the editors with a quote by Percy Bysshe Shelley. It says, "In solitude, or in that deserted state, when we are surrounded by human beings, and yet they sympathize not with us, we love the flowers, the grass, and the waters and the sky. In the motion of the very leaves of spring in the blue air, there is then found a secret correspondence with our heart." Our team goes on to write, "In a year full of darkness and isolation, art and literature have played an increasingly important role in people's lives. Creating art provides an escape, it gives one a voice, and it serves as a way to connect with others. The world needs more opportunities to create and more art to cherish. To help fulfill those needs is our calling as an editorial staff. We hope that the Colton Review Volume 17 inspires you and provides you the creative outlet you need. For our staff, production meetings served as weekly high points. Despite never meeting in person, we grew as a team and came to treasure the virtual time we spent together. We rejoiced over every writing submission we received from students and faculty, and we deliberated more than ever over which to include in the publication. To all who submitted your creative works, we thank you for your contributions."
It is always an honor to be entrusted with the Meredith community's creative works and to see what common threads emerge. This year, students and faculty have shared with us their thoughts about loss, love, family, as well as the coronavirus pandemic itself. We are grateful for the honesty, vulnerability, and personality in each of the stories and poems in this publication. A love and appreciation for nature also shines through in many authors' works. During a time where much of one's day is consumed by technology, many writers chose to reflect on the natural magic of forests, the delicate details of a willow, or even the fear of harming the natural world. We imagine that the collective longing for nature, for family, and for friendships that unites this year's journal will resonate with our readers. Without Meredith writers and artists willing to share their creations and readers eager to enjoy them, the Colton Review would not exist, so we thank you. As an editorial staff, we hope that the art and writing in these pages reminds you that there is beauty in this world and that you are capable of creating it. And now I'd like to introduce Professor Woody Holloman, Associate Professor of Art and Faculty Advisor of the Colton Review's design staff, who is going to showcase the design of the Colton Review Volume 17.
Okay, so let me say a few words and then I think I'll be able to do a screen share. Is that correct?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, so eventually I'll pull up a digital version, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about our motivation
Look, there's Sissy.
For this year's design. So this year's design was meant to reinforce the Back to Nature theme you've just been hearing about, which was chosen by the editorial staff. And you'll see this theme reflected in a muted green color palette on the cover and some of the inside pages. Some whimsical imagery of butterflies and flowers, which could be interpreted as a metaphor for flora and fauna generally, and a dramatic use of open space in our page layouts. So let me talk about that last issue. Instead of filling our text pages uniformly from top to bottom, We surrounded poetry and prose titles with a generous and unexpected buffer of open space above and below that encourages the reader to pause and contemplate each title as a work of art unto itself, as they might pause to marvel at a cluster of daffodils or the call of a mockingbird. There are also green lines above and below each title, which literally and figuratively underscore the meaning of each of those phrases. And before I do anything else, I'd like to thank the students from my Art 400 course who generated a variety of initial design concepts for the Colton, and our art director, Hannah Schneider, for heroically carrying the final design concept through all 132 pages of this year's edition. It is a hefty edition, which means that there's a lot of great work to look at and to read. So let's see. So I've got that. Let me see if I can do a quick screen share. And let's see if that's working. It is. So let me just pull up quickly. So this is the front cover, just as a digital PDF file. So you can see the muted green color that I was talking about, the bold typography, and then just a glimpse of that butterfly image that actually wraps around the spine of the book to the back surface. So I'm now just going to pull up a few other pages. So there's this a cover page, some basic acknowledgments. Here's the letter from the editors that you just heard. And let me just show you, there's a table of contents here for both art and literature. And here's the beginning of some of the actual poems and stories, and then the placed artwork. So that's just giving you a quick glimpse of this, the structure and the motifs of this year's design. But again, you'll be able to access that both in the physical edition and of course in the digital version. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much, Professor Holloman. We are obsessed with how this year's publication turned out. It is beautiful. So we will now introduce the winners of the Art Awards. So as Best of Show, we have Karen Spangler's photography series titled Beyond the Selfie, Scars from History. Karen, we now invite you to introduce yourself by stating your year and your major and talk with us a little bit about your piece.
Hey, so my year is December 2020, so I've already graduated, and my major was graphic design with a minor in fine arts. Scars in History is a photography series exploring the interaction of our response to the scars of the past. Whether the scars of history are easily forgettable or entirely compelling, most of us will find confronting them elicits some kind of response, even if that response is to walk away. We're all bound together in the forward march of time and in our captivity to the past. We will all someday join history permanently. So to illustrate this concept, I created a series of composite photographs taken at Auschwitz-Birkenau and Krakow when I studied abroad in 2019. In all of these photographs, you, the viewer, are confronted with a specific scar from the past, evidence of a very serious event in history. These photographs are not a record of the brutal events themselves, but of the reality as we approach them in the 21st century. Here, a preserved list of Jewish condemned prisoners of Auschwitz is combined with the restored rail car that transported them. The stones of a destroyed Jewish cemetery are paired with the vandalism left behind by successive generations, and the remaining ovens stand in stark, silent witness with an urn in a museum. This entire series has been created using green highlights and purple undertones to evoke a similar response to a sepia monochrome photograph, but without the nostalgic benefit we associate with this kind of photography. Most of the photographs are meant to deliberately evoke a sense of the first-person confrontation with past events, while a few might linger in more of a spectator perspective. 2 days before I toured Auschwitz-Birkenau, I spent some time in Assisi, Italy, learning about St. Francis and the Franciscan order. In Auschwitz, I was told the story of Franciscan priest Maximilian Kolbe, who willingly took a condemned prisoner's place and died in his stead. These two interactions with the past formed a powerful contextualization that followed me through my entire Auschwitz experience and is reflected in some of the textual additions you'll find in some of the photographs. While the series is deeply personal to my experience interacting with the great scar of history, I hope my record of both the historical scars and my personal interaction with them will provide others with inspiration and thought-provoking moments for themselves as they themselves are confronted with the scars of the past. So thank you. I am honored to win this award, and I really appreciate working with the team and with everyone on this project. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Our first runner-up winner was Fish Taco by Bailey Burkett, who could not be here this morning, but we also want to congratulate her on her win. Next up, presenting art, we have Casey Vandenboom, whose piece Anatomy of a Woman was our second runner-up.
So this piece is about the duality of being a woman or a female presenting person in society. The piece itself represents the idea that women are often seen as people who take on the role of being a caretaker and who tend to the needs and wounds of others before they tend to their own needs. This is compounded by the pristine white of the bust, contrasting with the bright red details, which I chose to use vines and thorns, which are a very angry color against the white of the bust. Also, the neutral facial expression of the bust as she turns away from her own trauma is unique to my experience as a woman, but can also reflect most women in their own experiences, as a lot of us have experienced a time in which they have been asked to shove down their own personal feelings and take care of others before they take care of themselves. The use of diary pages going up the side of my form represents my own struggle and trauma surrounding being a woman. That it is also a way to validate my own experiences by putting them on display for other people to see. So this piece also tackles the idea of forced vulnerability that women often feel, contrasting with the fact that they have to, while they have to be vulnerable, they have to also cover it up and continue to keep moving.
Thank you so much, Casey. Our honorable mention in Art Awards goes to Leah Jensen for her digital painting, Fencelure. Leah, we'd love to hear a little bit about your piece.
So I created Fencelure to highlight women's roles in ancient Northern European mythology, which I have a lot of interest in. Frigg is the goddess depicted, and she's associated with motherhood and the home. And I was inspired to create this piece because I feel that there's a lot of discussion of masculine roles in discourse about history and mythology, but there's not a lot centering on women, and there's not a lot centering on, raising children. And that's why I picked this specific goddess to make the piece about. And I wanted to consider how women of the time might have related to mythological stories, adding culturally specific details like Frigg's symbols, like the keys at her left, as well as the wooden carving and construction of the throne, which would have been typical for the time period, was an important part of my research to help convey time and setting for this project. And I also looked back at some ancient texts like the Prose and Poetic Edda to get details about the goddess that I painted. The name of the piece, Fencelure, refers to the realm of the goddess, and you can see that it's depicted in the background. And I really wanted to show her as a powerful queen figure in her own right, and I'm honored to have received this award, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Next, we'll move on to our Prose Awards. And first we have Angelina Morin, whose short piece, Grandpa, won our first place award.
All right. I'm really thankful to have won this award. I'm very humbled, and I'm excited to see it published. So I'm going to read an excerpt from my piece, Grandpa. Grandpa, Jacob Goldberg, In the 1920s, somewhere in New York, a gunshot rang through a candy store and took the life of the man who owned it. His wife, now widowed, cared for 5 children, including Jacob. Jacob, who was 5 then, grew up only knowing his father through the memories of others: an immigrant, a tailor, a small business owner, a Jewish man in New York City, a murder victim, and father. With no photos of Jacob as a boy, I imagine his brown hair curling at the tips, and him doe-eyed in the face of his family's grief. He grows taller, colder, and becomes an Air Force engineer, serves his country during World War II, and sends his buddies out over the ocean to fight a war that will soon free Jews from a German genocide. He'll wait anxiously for his planes to return to the field. The blue sky will turn into a veil of darkness, and the hopeful flash of plane lights, the heavy wind of plane propellers, will never return. But the war will end. Hun. His wife at the time called him Hun, and his youngest child, Arlene, believing that to be his name, called him that as well. There were nights that Hun did not appear to be himself, quite literally, his face more bearded than usual, or his clothes not his own. He dressed up or dressed down for the days he spent inside New York's Italian mob, and his most important accessory was something you could not see: the wiretaps. But when the disguise was off, Arlene would sit between her 2 parents at night, fighting the urge to sleep as children so often do. When she began to drift, Hun would lift her from her seat, and her head would gently bounce against his chest as he carried her upstairs. Nice guy, Jack Goldberg. You knew the man. He owns the property in Swan Lake, the bungalow colonies. You knew him, and he knew you, his suspenders pulling his long pants into place and his chin darkened by his growing beard. He used to work in the city before things got sour with his wife. Sometimes his daughter Arlene runs away, catches a couple buses to Brooklyn just to see her mother. He's got the only color TV on the block, and his girl's got a glossy photo with his old Monkey Murphy in it. Yeah, that's nice guy Jack Goldberg. Pop. Jacob's 5 children stood in a line as he addressed them, their eyes down and feet quick to disperse when he dismissed them. He was never a man of loving words in those years. His children never received birthday parties or gifts, but the town remembers him much differently than his children do: a giving and kind man, even an experimental man. Jack. The vibrant green grass swayed as the blue sky swirled around Jack. He laid in the front lawn of his bungalow colony, face up, eyes wide, and unmoving. He was deaf to the sound of Arlene calling out for him, as the clouds took on unknown shapes and the colors of the world began to breathe. He was so still, Arlene believed he might be dead, splayed out midday on the lawn. Jack's close friend was diagnosed with cancer and took Quaaludes to ease the pains of treatment and to cope with the fate of his disease. He took his pills with a shot or 2 of vodka and told Jack about the world he saw during his high. "I would like to see those colors you're always talking about," said Jack. And so, it appears, he did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelina. Our second place in prose awards goes to Mia Shelton for her short story titled Play Dead. Mia, we now invite you to introduce yourself. You can state your year and major if you like, and then read your work.
Hi, thank you so much for introducing me. My name is Mia Shelton. I'm a psychology major, and I'm a junior at Meredith College. And yeah, this is my piece called Play Dead. I'm just going to read a small excerpt of it. My only fear is of losing the souls that I cherish. They are rare and fleeting, few and far between. One must search through overgrown hedges and wait for these souls to reveal themselves among the unrestrained overgrowth of leaves and wiry branches that obstruct the eyes and pierce the skin. And they never give warning as to when their souls are beginning to part from their bodies. Even when they do, I shut my eyes and ears and pray that my intuition is deceiving me. I have seen them disappear in 2s and 3s. They always vanish too soon, too unexpectedly, and too young. They are here with me, then the light slowly flickers out of their eyes. They languish and become cold, all in less than a moment's time. I clasp their paperweight hands, heavy when I lift them, and falling with a forceful velocity when I let go. I try to capture their souls as they dissipate quickly as rainbows do in thick, damp, post-rain mist, but my efforts are in vain. They leave in haste. They never wait for others to catch up. They caper playfully in the wind like balloons drifting further and further away until they are gone forever. I'll never know if they reached the stars or if they melted from the heat of the sun. And I'll leave it there for you. But thank you so much for this award. I'm really honored and humbled to have received it.
Thank you so much, Mia. Our honorable mention prose award goes to Cameron Garcia for her piece, How to Save a Life. Cameron, we would love to hear an excerpt of it.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate this. I am so grateful, especially to be among such fantastic work. I will be reading an excerpt from this, but a small background. I had the honor of being a swim teacher for children ages 4 months to 12 years old, and this is a piece about an experience I had there. Thank you. Waddle to your last class in total exhaustion with the hope of a nap after your shift. Get distracted from all the fun of your last lesson by glancing at a mom, frozen in terror, frantically banging on the glass window. Watch her like an absolute idiot for about a minute until you finally decide to follow her eyes. See the silhouette of strawberry blonde encased in pink and yellow bikini under the water. Leap over to the next lane on autopilot and leave your kids unattended with no backup plan. Attempt to grasp at her submerged being with slippery hands. Caress her tangled hair. She sobs into your arms. Whisper that she's safe now. Gently place her in her mother's arms as the two let out a heartfelt cry of anguish and relief. Slip back into your original lane and finish the swim lesson as if nothing happened. Ignore the way your hands slightly shake as the whistle once again perforates your eardrums to signal the end of lessons. Watch the parents shuffle into the pool deck in droves as you eagerly await the chance to return to your kids to their rightful home and process what just happened. Wave your arms excitedly and puff out your chest with pride as you explain to mommy and daddy how well their student did in class today. Feel your frigid soul melt a little as your student says that coming to class made it the best day ever. Take a deep breath as you sit with your last student in an attempt to calm your delirious mind that is bursting at the seams. Have that breath knocked right out of you again as your brain takes the opportunity to remind you that the girl you saved was the younger sibling of this last student. Clumsily accept the mother's heartfelt gratitude for saving her child's life while you awkwardly attempt to tell her about her other daughter's progress. Rush out of the pool to the shower and attempt to keep yourself from crying at post shift while your boss yells at everyone for their incompetence. Pray to God that he'll watch over your kids and they'll remember everything you taught them. You'll certainly never forget. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cameron. Moving on to our poetry winners. First place goes to Shelley Whitmire for her poem, Hapless Decoration. Shelley will now share her poem with us.
Hey y'all, I'm Shelley Whitmire. I'm just a business student here. I'm a junior right now, but I'll be a senior next year. My poem's pretty short, so I'm just gonna read the whole thing, okay? And once again, it's called Hapless Decoration. In those old days, upon that ceramic floor, I stared into her back, where she was resting on her knees and staring in the water, as if she was finely brushed with ocean blue tears, devoid of salt, teasing at the seam of her existence. She hearkens to the girl, wet from chlorine on a holy afternoon, staring at the flesh of her youthful thighs. Who could imagine a being so small, so fragile and fair as to wonder why, and for what purpose, she rests in that frame, bathed in clinical light, mirrored by the one dripping onto the floor into the vast sea below.
Thank you, Shelley. A beautiful work. I am now proud to announce that my co-leader, Olivia Slack, is the recipient of Second Place Poetry Award for her poem, Shrinking Skies.
All right, so I'm Olivia. I'm a junior here. I'm a political science and environmental sustainability major, and I have minors in English and creative writing. So here is my poem, Shrinking Skies. They call it Big Sky Country because the blue goes on and on until the mountains interrupt it, rising up out of the ground to stake their claim in the vast, empty air. The jagged peaks bursting through the earth and creating great gashes in the land have been witness to the catastrophes and joys of an entire planet through ages of fire and snow. But we do not revere the strength held in their height, and instead recreate it with pitiful imitations that we call city skylines. The mountains have a claim, but we disregard it, even though they are older and wiser than we, the creatures who dare to take their wildness and tame it, to take the big sky and fill it with clouds that are not clouds, but are formed from the labors of humans and the hot residue of our desires. It's big sky country, but the big sky is getting smaller the bigger we believe we are.
Thank you, Olivia. A beautiful poem. This year, we have actually had 2 poets receive honorable mention. The first is Julia Brent for her poem, Dear Debbie. Julia, if you'll introduce yourself and read your poem, that would be wonderful.
Hi, everyone. I'm a senior at Meredith College, and I'm studying political science and international studies. And my poem is called Dear Debbie. There's much less karaoke in my life now, much less wandering in the bitter cold and sitting on freezing metal benches, as we talked about all life's problems. Now that I've moved away, I drive a lot more. Everywhere I go, every place to be, there are seldom places reasonably reachable on foot. I finally have a skincare routine, but I still haven't made a habit of eating breakfast. I stay up too late and snooze the alarm too many times. I still overthink too much, my mind's stuck in the plans of tomorrow. I still drink way too little water and way too much coffee. I miss cobblestone steps and long bus rides. I sit in new friends' apartments and have long conversations about purpose, about God, about who we are, as the candles flicker and tea grows colder. Every Sunday night we gather, I always drink from the same mug, the bird tit mug. You would like them. Oh, how you would like my new people. Well, most of them at least. They are thoughtful and sometimes too optimistic and loud, but they are genuine and real. Though we've grown, each in our own way, I love you just the same and think fondly of those days on metal benches and cobblestone steps. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And our last honorable mention award goes to Erin Wendorf for her poem, A Letter to Uncle Derek. Erin, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erin. I am a senior majoring in English with a minor in professional writing. And this poem is really personal to me because it's about my uncle who was shot. So here it is. A letter to Uncle Derek. Where do I begin? I never knew you, not truly. I never took the time to get to know you while you were alive. My young mind was so focused on leaping from the trampoline with my cousins and dancing around in front of the Wii. I was so young when you passed, only 7 or 8. Now, 14 years later, all I can think about is how happy you would be with your family. Mom says you were kind, that you would put others first. She says you wanted equality and worked at the ACLU. She has also told me you had a good sense of humor, and I have a feeling you would laugh at my jokes, even the worst of my puns. But that can't happen. Your wife is remarried to a man much louder and more outgoing than you. I like to think you two would be friends if the circumstances were different. Your kids have grown up. The twins are in college, and your youngest is graduating high school soon. Your siblings miss you. Mom and Brian get quiet and somber whenever you're mentioned. Your nephew and nieces don't remember you. We only wish we did. In a moment, everything changed, all because of one bullet. Sometimes, when I am overwhelmed and feel like it might be worth it to leave this life behind, I think of you, and I wonder, is death an escape from life, or is it a knife, cutting off a bright future as easily as scissors through ribbon? I guess we'll never know if you dodged a bullet with the bullet of another.
Thank you, Erin. And thank you for sharing something so personal to you. That is all that we have on our agenda for today. So I just want to thank again everyone who read and showcased their work today. And congratulations again. And also thank you so much to everyone for coming and supporting your fellow Meredith writers and artists. It means a lot to everyone here. Krista and I also want to express our heartfelt thanks to Professor Hallman and the design team for all of their hard work, to Professor Hogan for advising our literary staff, and to our poetry editor, Kate Pulaski, prose editor, Devin Tutherow, engagement manager, Kaylee Ranke, promotions manager, Corinne Zybel, social media manager, Maria Solorzano, our fall 2020 archivist, Rachel Sampson, and our current archivist, Tamara Bomparte, all of our writer editors, and everyone who submitted work. We really could not create the Colton Review without each and every one of you. And then also, I just want to reiterate where you can find a copy. So like Krista said earlier, several copies are set out in the Gaddy Hamrick Arts Center and also in Joyner Hall and Johnson Hall. You can also coordinate with Rose Cafaldo to get a copy starting tomorrow morning. And she's in her Joyner 120 office every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning. And it's totally free. And we have plenty of copies, so don't hesitate to get one. And then you can also find a digital copy on our website, which is just coltonreview.com. So thank you all again for coming, and we hope you have a great rest of your CSA day.
Just wanted to quickly say congratulations, everyone. I'm so happy. We did it.
Thank you, Kaylee. That went so well. This is always such an exciting moment. I'm glad you could make it.
Me too.